Barbara Streisand used to take her shoes off when she went to auditions. I don't know why I mentioned her, because she never mentions me. So. But I was thinking about tonight, you know, and things till like sometimes 1 or 2 in the morning, not sleeping. Not because I was thinking, oh God, you know, I was just thinking, you know what, let me think about what this might be about and what I can talk to you about and what might be valuable. And has anyone here heard of Jung's synchronicity? Yeah. Yes. And I remember having lots of conversations with Claire about trusting the book, trusting all the conversations we had, trusting that the message that needs to be put out there will be put out there. And as fortune would have it, you know, both Sue and Claire have touched on themes that were arising, you know, for me. So I'm going to try to put them in some sort of order and communicate that to you. Now, I mentioned I've had a lot of conversations with Claire about this idea of community, taking drama therapy. And I'm going to just point out now that drama therapy and ritual theatre is sort of interchangeable for me, you know, in the next sort of 15-minute talk that I'm going to give. So if you're confused about what I mean by drama therapy and what I mean by ritual theatre, it's sort of one and the same for me. So we have been talking about this idea of having, you know, going into theatres, taking this work into the community, because I've been working for 10 years in mental health, in psychiatric units with probably every client group you can think of, with people with psychosis, schizophrenia, borderline personality disorder, which I'm going to come on to, people with bipolar, and people who are also in a forensic psychiatric hospital. Does everyone know what that is? No. Good. Do say, because I don't want to take it for granted. Forensic psychiatric means that they're being detained under Her Majesty's pleasure for some reason. They've committed a crime, and they're on a 3941 section, which means that they are released to a psychiatric unit to receive treatment. Okay. A lot of them used to say to me, Deborah, at least when we were in prison, we knew when we were going to get out. You know, in a psychiatric unit, they just keep renewing your section until they're happy with your wellness. But anyway, that's another story. So, so I've done a lot of that work. But talking to Claire and doing workshops, doing private practice, going to Claire's workshops. Oh, I had a little shiver then. Going to Claire's workshops really inspired me into thinking, what about the worried well? You know, what about the people that are out there? All the stresses, the economy, the recession. People's lives are changing so dramatically, and not just here, but all over the world. And what do we do? What do we do when we've had a bad day? Just shout it out. What do you do when you've had a bad day? Drink a bottle of wine. What else?
Watch telly.
Watch telly. What else?
Go for a long walk.
Eat chocolate. Someone said go for a long walk. Very good. Oh, that's quite high functioning. Good. Positive coping strategies as well as negative ones. You know, and some people take drugs. You know, and some people smoke marijuana. Some people get into heroin. Some people, you know, and they're out there living in the community. And we've got this amazing tool, you know, that can help you know how healing it is to go to the theatre. Claire's already mentioned that. But what if we take it one step further? And I said to Claire, well, if you can make it interactive, that people can actually feel part of the drama, that the things that are being acted out, maybe they could say, you know, I want this to happen, because that happened to me today and I didn't know how to handle it. And that's what happened back in Greek times. You know, those Greek myths and stories were all designed, if you like, to help us understand life, the pain and the joys, and how to deal with it, how to relate to your mother, you know, the Oedipus complex, you know, all these kinds of themes that are around for everybody because they're universal, because we're all basically human. And Claire also talks about being inside our heads, which we are. So if we have a problem, we try to think about it, do we? We think how we're going to solve it. What can I do to make this better? What can I do? And actually, from my experience, and I don't know about you, but the more you hold on to it and look at it and you know, the more difficult it becomes to solve. Does anyone agree with that? Am I on my own?
Yeah.
So the more you obsess, the more the answer, you know, moves away from you. And so, and that's because we're largely in our logical minds. We're in the left-hand side of our brains. And the mind is a very good friend. So if you've got a difficulty or a problem, it comes in and says, oh, do this, do that. And if you don't do that, you'll lose that. And you know, and it tells you all the catastrophes as well. Can you relate to this? All the catastrophes that are going to happen if you don't quite do this at this time. So our mind is very, very helpful. But it doesn't always give us a solution. And the part that my experience has taught me does is the right-hand side of the brain. Now, does everyone know what happens in the right-hand side of the brain? Want to shout it out?
Abstract.
Yeah, what is it?
Abstract.
Abstract, creative side,
Non-verbal.
non-verbal, intuitive, fantastic. I'm glad someone said that. Exactly. And it's usually that part of ourselves. Some people call it the wise mind. In mindfulness, we call it the wise mind. It knows what to do. But the mind says, oh, you don't know what to do here. I've got to tell you, you've got to do this, otherwise that happened, and, you know, it'll all be terrible. But actually, the right-hand side of the mind says, you know what, wait. Sit still. Listen. Just listen. And how easy is that to do when you've got a problem? Yeah. Exactly. So, I'm going to do a little experiment that I'm going to ask you to join in, if you don't mind. And I'm going to discover, we're going to see how many people, it doesn't matter, but how many people are in their left-hand side of their brains. Oh, thank you, Chris. You know already. Okay, so you spend a lot of time on the left-hand side of your brain. So you're going to be really good at this. I'm going to say a word, it's a word association game. I'm going to say a word, and you're going to say a word, the first word that comes to your mind. Oh God, the first image. So if I say man, you say, if I say black, you say, if I say dark, you say, if I say sun, you say, see, you're fantastic. Give yourself a round of applause. You're really good at the left-hand side of your brain. We are. Now, how to get in the right-hand side. Now, there is a technique you can use by sticking your finger up your nose, and this is true, apparently. My Tai Chi teacher taught me it. That's really hard to say. Tai Chi teacher taught me it. I can't remember which is which, so I'm not going to ask you to do that. You can try at home alone, maybe. But I'm going to give you a word, and you have to say a word that's, or not have to, but the invitation is to say a word that is completely, that was very drama therapist, wasn't it? Drama therapist laughing at me. That's totally unrelated. So if I say man, you might say, oh, very good at this. Maybe I was going to give you an example. What is it? Table. Table, good. If I say moon, you say dawn. Great. If I say table, country. If I say cup, if I say woman, coat, house. Good. So we're all in the right-hand side of our brains now, hopefully. Okay. Now, I'm going to invite you to do a little exercise, and this exercise is to demonstrate ritual theatre, storytelling, or drama therapy, and then I'll go on to talk about using the goddess Lakshmi with the borderline personality disorder patients I work with. But I wanted to give you a flavour of the kind of exercise that, you know, the sort of thing that drama therapy does. So, it's a quick storytelling exercise. You can do it in your head, you'll be pleased to hear. And I'm going to ask you, first of all, to think of your favourite film, book or play. The first one that comes to mind is usually the most useful. Now think of a scene or a section from that book, film or play. Usually your favourite bit, can be, or the first one that comes to mind. I think that's quite important. Then think of a character in that scene, and picture the character relating to the people in the scene, if there are other people in the scene. Am I going too fast for anybody? This is all right, okay. Relating to people in the scene, how they feel about them, how they feel about the situation, what's going on for them, what they're thinking. Do they want to be there? Do they want to be somewhere else? So are we all there? Okay, now you're in that, and imagine yourself as that character. And then step back in terms of, you know, your mind, and think about how that relates to you now in your life. Okay? Does that make sense? It might make sense, it might not. It might be abstract, it might be Valeta, it might be symbolic. So, does anybody want to give a little bit of feedback, or maybe, oh, you don't mind? Okay, thank you.
So my favourite film is The Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of Oz.
So I was, they were all skipping down the yellow brick road.
Yeah.
And she just found Dorothy had just found the other three characters, Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Lion.
Yeah.
They were skipping down the yellow brick road, and I was Dorothy. And how it relates to my life is, I think, I'm a first-year student, and I'm here with some three new friends.
Ah, it's interesting. And it's amazing, isn't it? That's the subconscious part of you that knows more than you think you know. So thank you for sharing that. Is there anyone else feel safe sharing a little experience? Thank you.
The book that came to mind was The Time Traveler's Wife. It's not that it's my favourite book, but it just came to mind, so I remember it.
Great.
And there's a scene where the main character travels back in time. He's completely naked. He breaks into a shop and only finds dancing clothes and, like, you know, really feminine looking clothes, and he has to step out in the street, and some young men try and attack him because they assume that he is gay. And when I was putting myself in there, I got this sense of not quite belonging, you know, just sort of trying to fit in but not quite. And I was just suddenly thinking, because I've studied in Ireland, and all my drama therapy experience is in Ireland, and I'm now in England. It's a little bit like that, you know, everything is very familiar, but yet very strange and alien. So that resonated for me.
Good. So you feel slightly displaced?
Yeah, a little bit,
yeah.
Yeah, and almost a little bit naked.
Yes. Thank you for that. So, and anybody else bursting to share their story before I move on? Well, can I just give them a round of applause? It's not an easy thing to do in this situation, but it is almost magical, but it is as simple as that. Now,